One more to go before the NASCAR 2024 playoffs begin as we preview the Sunday night race in Darlington, the last Sunday all to NASCAR's self before the NFL kicks off the following Thursday, and then it's wall-to-wall NFL on Sunday competing with NASCAR. The Cookout Southern 500 coming up this Sunday night. How's it going, TJ?
Going well. Like you said, one race to go. I always love Darlington, and there's nothing better than a Darlington race at night, so I am looking forward to the end of the regular season with that one.
Yes. We'll see how this goes because there was another spot taken away. Big surprise at Daytona, and, you know, it was one of those races where you got what you paid for. I mean, there were tons of wrecks. It was Daytona at its best or worst, depending on how you look at it. And, you know, I guess if it just would have been like a normal end to the race with normal drivers, capable drivers at the end, battling it out for the win, it might have been a hell of a race from start to finish. I would have said, well, you know, that was great. But based on how that leaderboard looked, and that final green-white checkered, I've never seen anything like it. If you took Kyle Busch out of there, it was like, what is this? What the hell's a Retzlaff? I mean, it was like, and then of course Harrison Burton gets the fortunate. All it was one lane was faster than the other at the right time. That's all it was, and boy, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, Richard Childress, just not their year.
Wow, you can say that again. Yeah, it's been terrible for them. We've been talking about Kyle Busch getting better. We've been talking about Austin Dillon, Richard Childress overall, finding the mistakes that they've been making all this season, improving on them, and starting to get results. Dillon gets the win. Unfortunately, he's not going to be in the playoffs because NASCAR took that away from him. His final appeal was a failure as well. Kyle Busch, man, he was so close yet again. Could have won it in a Richard Childress car. We talked about that before the race. Though from qualifying, you knew that Fords were going to be really tough to beat. The question was just who had Harrison Burton among the Fords, right? But yeah, Parker Retzlaff, very, very interesting that you brought him up. Yeah, he's a complete new name, unknown to this show, certainly. But for those of you who've been following the junior series for quite a while, he's actually got some pretty good talent. So I anticipate Parker Retzlaff coming up through the ranks. It's not going to be, next season or anything like that. And certainly last week was kind of a fluke, not a fluke, but he deserves it certainly. But I think his real opportunities are going to come in the years yet to come.
Okay. He don't look like no race car driver. I'll tell you that much.
He does not fit.
Looks like my accountant.
He is skinny like me. He's got glasses. Yeah, absolutely. He doesn't fit the NASCAR Cup Series driver mold one bit.
Okay, so let's take a look at the standings.
You must have a really young accountant too, because I think he also looks like he's 15. But that's
true. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so how can Martin Truex not get in?
I think he basically has to start the race, if I'm not mistaken. There's 40-some-ish points that are possible on any given day, and then you add in it'd be like 40-ish, right?
I mean, is he guaranteed no matter what, as long as he starts the race, he's in the playoffs?
I gotta say so. I mean, with a 58-point clearance down to 16th, even if somebody wins and he finishes dead last, he's still going to get like a point, right? So I can't foresee anybody even tying him, let alone surpassing him at that point.
All right, Gibbs, pretty much the same in a way, right? He's pretty safe.
He's got to be relatively safe. He's got to, if he scores one stage point in the first stage, it's all done for him. Yeah, he's going to be locked in.
Okay, what about Buescher at 21? Now, he is definitely the one that it all depends on whether or not another driver without a win wins the race. Then he's completely screwed unless Buescher can find a way to pass Gibbs during the race, and then put Gibbs in the bad spot. So what would it take Buescher to outpoint Gibbs in this race if someone steals a win, like say Kyle Busch?
Stage points. It's got to be, so for Chris Buescher, I would think you'd play it relatively cautious to ensure that you pick up as many stage points as possible. Gibbs, he can be a little bit more flamboyant, a little bit more risky, because all he basically needs to do is finish, and he's going to get through. But in order for Chris Busch to put Ty Gibbs in the hot seat, Buescher's going to have to finish inside the stage points, if not win both stages, at least a stage, and then finish, top two probably in the other one. That will put the pressure on Ty Gibbs. And Gibbs has got to not finish in the stage points. So like I said before, if Gibbs, he being Gibbs, ends up in the top 10 at the end of that first stage, it's basically over. His spot is locked, and then Buescher's just got to hope that no new driver wins. Okay,
so how does the points go? Is it just as simple as you get like a point for every place that you're in? Or, I mean, how does it work as far as how many points? Let's get the stage points out of the way. If Buescher were to finish in second and Gibbs were to finish in 25th, how many points can Buescher make up on Gibbs just on the race results themselves?
On the race results, if Gibbs, not talking about the stage points, just the race results themselves, say Gibbs finished last, he'd probably pick up a point maybe, depending upon how early he goes out. So bring him up to plus 40. If Buescher, say, finishes second, he could very well tie, and then it comes down to the tiebreaker, because there's 40-ish points available at the top of the field, and then you throw in the stage points on top of that.
Okay.
Buescher basically needs a point, or he needs as many points to make himself comfortable, or at least put the pressure on, I should say, because he's not going to be comfortable all night. But to put the pressure on, Buescher has to get those stage points, or he's going to hope that Gibbs exits the race extremely early. Okay. Certainly, the impetus is all on Gibbs to just be able to make laps, not do anything, erratic. If he's in the top 10 in the first stage, he gets it out of the way and he can relax the rest of the night and go for the win if he wants to. But if he doesn't get stage points, then he's just got to make sure that he finishes. And as long as he's not the first car out of the race, he's basically on his way through.
And really, it's pretty much the same thing for Bubba against Buescher without winning. He's 21 back. He has to, again, just let's say 22 is what he has to get. And we're talking about Buescher and Gibbs at 18. So, right. Same thing. Bubba just needs to... and look, this is going to be the strategy. I guess he's going to have to find out what kind of car he has with qualifying and all that. Do I feel like I have a car to win the race? Well, that's what I'm worried about. I'm not going to try to get stage points that'll put me in a bad position to win the race, because I really think I could win this race. Or I don't think I got a winning car, so I'm just going out and getting as many stage points. I don't care where it puts me, result-wise, even though I got to try to make still some of that back at some point. So really, that's what Bubba's going to find out before the race on Sunday, if he has a winning car or not.
Yeah, exactly right. And if you go back to the 18-point gap between Gibbs and Buescher, so Buescher needs to get the stage points, but looking at Gibbs, like I said, everything is in his hands. If he's able to, if for whatever reason he has a very poor night, makes mistakes, as long as he doesn't exit the race, if he finishes in the top half of the field, he's through. I mean, you've got roughly 30-some, almost 40 cars that come up there this week. If he finishes in that top half, 18 plus, he's good and he's through regardless of what happens with Buescher. But Buescher's really got to come out swinging. He's the one that's got all the pressure, has to be scoring those stage points. And like you said, Bubba Wallace a little bit further behind. He's got to be on the same playbook as Buescher, and he's got to be hoping something else happens to Ty Gibbs at the same time.
Okay. And again, and what's just, I'm sure most of everybody already heard about Denny Hamlin and what happened to him. So he is now 6th in points. Where would he be without this penalty?
If you add, so he basically got docked 75 points. So I think if you add that back to his total following Daytona, I think that would probably put him about 3rd or 4th, if I'm not mistaken. So he basically lost 3 or 4 positions as a result of that penalty. I think more importantly, though, yeah, it's pretty big. So he would have been in contention to potentially race for the regular season title. He's had such a good year. But the real pain for him is the fact that they docked 10 playoff points as well. So when the points get reset after this week's race and they go back to he's going to have to carry that all the way through. So every round, every 3 races in the playoffs, those points reset. That's 10 extra points he could have had. It's not going to affect him in the early round unless for whatever reason he's one of those guys that ends up with very early trouble. But as you know, later on, as you get into the rounds, the more those points become important because not everybody can be winning those races. So I think it's a big penalty. It's very frustrating. It was not Hamlin's or Joe Gibbs Racing's fault. It was all on Toyota. Toyota publicly apologized to the organization as well as Hamlin, but it definitely put them in a more difficult spot, and it's going to be more difficult the further they advance into the playoffs.
Okay, so there you go. Now, let's take a look at what we're going to be dealing with this week as far as the odds. And by the way, I have not, this is the first time I'm doing a show and I have no idea what the odds are. I think the first time ever. So
can you guess who the top 2 are, though?
I'll try to guess. Yeah, that shouldn't be hard. But anyway, first of all, this will be the 127th race at Darlington. They raced in May in the Goodyear 400. Keselowski won from the second position. He led 37 laps. What I really found was interesting about that race, and this is why qualifying matters at Darlington, is that Reddick led the most laps, 174, from the pole. Gibbs led 34 laps, which was third most, from the fourth position. Buescher led 21 laps, which was fourth most, from the third position. And as I said, Keselowski was from the second position. So the top 4 in laps led were all in the top 2 rows to start the race in the Goodyear 400. Now, Keselowski was a Ford, so Ford had 3 of the top 5, plus the winner. Chevy did not have a driver in the top 5, just 2 in the top 10. Toyota, of course, I mentioned Reddick and Gibbs, were pretty strong. At least early. So it's looking like it's one of those, at least for now, and I think it's if anything it's open just regarding those stats. But Toyota hasn't won in the last 5, so I think that's important. And then when you're talking about pole positioning, 6 of the last 8 have started in the top 8, including 3 in the top row, a pole and 2 seconds, even though we've only had 1 pole sitter win since 2015. That was Joey Logano back in 2022. And even to make it bigger, in the last 28 races, 75% of the winners started in the top 12, the top 6 rows. That's 21 of the last 28. The ones on the outside, 2 13s, 2 15s, a 16 and 18, and a 23. So I guess you agree with how important pole positioning will matter in this race.
Darlington is very much a track position track. There, you have to race the track, so you've got to have a fast car, you've got to have a powerful car, but you have to have a car, not only one that handles extremely well, because there are 2 very unique turns, and it has very unique, some would call it progressive banking, I call it stepped banking. But Darlington's also extremely tough on tires, so you've got to have a setup that is easy on your tires, that gives you the most grip throughout an entire fuel run. And if you look at the race that we had there earlier in the spring, most of the runs were long runs. There were only 6 total cautions, 2 stage breaks, obviously, so it wasn't like, earlier Daytona last week or whatever. I almost said yesterday, but I guess it was 2 days ago, or maybe 3 days ago. Since it was Saturday night. But you've got to be easy on tires, you've got to be easy on your equipment, and it's a really hard track to do that without making a mistake. So it's all about track position. It's all about getting that set up for your car right early on the weekend so that you can qualify up front. If you're up front, you definitely have the advantage.
Here were my notes from the spring race. Keselowski wins a late 3-car duel between Reddick and his teammate Buescher. Reddick slammed into Buescher, who was leading at the time with about 12 laps to go. Both lost a tire and had to pit, leaving Keselowski to win. Does that sound right?
Sounds absolutely right. Hard racing at the front. One of those times where Tyler Reddick was in competition for the win, but kind of bit off more than he could chew, kind of choked a little bit, and ended up with that contact. I remember the pair having words on pit road, and Tyler Reddick being very recalcitrant, really, apologetic to Buescher about what had happened and intended to happen. Both cars were taken out. Keselowski had a good car throughout the day and was there to capture the win. This track as well seems to favor a certain type of driver. It requires a certain type of approach, so it's not one of those tracks, usually speaking, where somebody who has not been good at it in the past suddenly gets the setup right. It's one where you get it early and you have it forever. It's not one that you kind of build up to over time.
Let's see. And the cars that I thought were the best, obviously Reddick had to be. Keselowski. I also had Gibbs. And I had Byron, Blaney, Truex, Larson, and Logano in there. And I do have the note regarding Byron causing Blaney and Truex to get taken out. Forget what happened in that situation, but noting that Truex and Blaney actually had decent cars that day, but Byron must have done something and it interrupted the finish. And of course, Truex has a good history here. Blaney does not, even though he had finished ninth in both races last year. So Blaney might have had 3 straight top 10s at this track if it wasn't for, I guess, this incident with Byron. But still a big difference between maybe fantasy-wise as a top 10 as opposed to winning a race, which I still think Blaney is probably not ready to do here. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to just guess here who's going to be the favorite. Let's see. All right, so well, the defending champ's Kyle Larson, so there you go.
There's no way it's not Kyle Larson.
So Kyle Larson's the favorite. And yeah, I mean, I probably would have to go with Hamlin, based on the fact that he's got 4 wins and a 4th this year. And in this race last year, he led 177 laps. So yeah, it's probably Larson and Hamlin. Would that be correct?
Absolutely, got to be correct. I haven't looked either, so it'll be news for me.
Oh!
No! Wow, how about that? Finally, some respect for
There's
Reddick.
Larson.
Yeah.
And there's Hamlin. Yeah, I was going to put Reddick next, right after Larson and Hamlin.
So,
yeah.
We were close enough. We just missed Reddick, right?
Yeah, I would have put Reddick. I would have thought he would have been like at, say, 650, if they would have been at 550. Not that I disagree with this, because of the fact that Reddick, of course, as we said, was the dominant car this year. And in last year's race, he finished second, leading 90 laps. So he's led 164 laps in the last 2 races and would have probably finished no worse than second or no worse than third, but probably second if it wasn't for the screw-up late earlier this year. So it might have been no worse than back-to-back finishes. And he's still, of course, if you look at it overall, I mean, just is him with this next-gen car is really what changed things, because he didn't have much going pre-next-gen. But since the next-gen, that's when he's really been doing well. And we're not going to count what happened at Daytona as some sort of bad deal to say that Tyler Reddick's hot streak is over, because of everybody pretty much got wiped out at Daytona except Kyle Busch, as far as some of the legitimate drivers, and Christopher Bell. Even though Christopher Bell, I mean, who knows what would have happened to Brad Keselowski if he wasn't stupid enough to jump the gun on the restart too. So yeah, he might have actually been up there. Okay, so there you go. These are the top 3. Again, Larson's defending champ. Keep this in mind, though. With the next gen, he's only had 1 top 5. That was the win last year from the 18th position. And in the next gen, though, he has led laps of 29, 30, and 35. But pre-next gen, 5 top 5s out of 8, 3 runner-ups, and has led laps of 124, 156, and 284. That's a big difference. So even though Larson's got a win last year, he's been much better pre-next gen than he has next gen. And so at 550, I would definitely go Reddick over Larson. And then with Hamlin, I'd probably go with Hamlin as well over Larson. Again, we just talked about it. Hamlin's last 2 trips there, his 4 overall wins. So I'd probably go Reddick, Hamlin, Larson.
I am the exact same as you on this, and I think both I would take as a wide margin over Larson. Larson's been really inconsistent this year. Yeah, he's won a lot of races. Yeah, he's been good here in the past, but not as good and consistently as a Hamlin and a Reddick. And I think if you just think of Hamlin in particular, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times out of his 24 starts, so more than 20% of the time, he's led over 100 laps at this track. That is huge. He's got 4 wins. He's done it in the old car. He's done it in the new car. Reddick, he's that light switch that I talked about earlier. This is not a track where you build up to slowly over time. It's something that you get, and once you get it, you got it. And Reddick got that with the new generation of car. So I think both of those guys are head and shoulders over Larson, who seems to have lost it over this season in terms of consistency, but then also, like you pointed out, at this track, old car versus new car.
All right, so next up, I'm going to say it's going to be Byron, and I don't know if they'll do this, but I'll say Keselowski. What do you think?
My top choice for next is going to be Keselowski, because everybody's got last week in their mind, and he won in the spring.
Yeah, and he's also in his last 4 at Darlington, 1st, 6th, 4th, and 7th. Byron, meanwhile, last 4, 6th, 4th, 1st, 8th. So his one was last year, the first race. Only led 7 laps, though. He's only led 86 laps in 12 races, so you're going to keep that in mind. And I'll probably put Bell in there, too.
I was going to say, I'd probably put Bell ahead of Byron, to be honest with you, if we look at the next 3, just because Bell's got a handful of top 10s here as well. He's got a pole position, if I'm not mistaken. So I think fans will probably have that in their mind versus William Byron, who's been a little bit quiet recently this season.
Yeah, Bell got the pole in this race last year, leading 40 of the only 56 laps he's ever led at this track. Just one of those, by the way, top 10s are a top 5. So, and his average is 16.4. So I don't like him in the race, but we know how Las Vegas is going to be. So I agree with you. Keselowski, Bell, and then Byron, or Bell, Keselowski, Byron?
I say Keselowski, Bell, Byron.
Okay,
if people are smart. We'll see.
Byron.
You were right. How about that?
Gibbs. Are you crazy?
Wow. No way I'm biting on that one. Good, yes, but not that good.
And Keselowski. So they did not give Christopher Bell so far out of this the props. Maybe he's 9-1, still possible. But Gibbs, all right, yes, as we said, he led 34 laps, finishing 2nd this year. Never had a top 10 before that. That's important. And he's never won a cup race.
That's very important.
Yes. So, I mean, forget it. You'd like to go, all right, Gibbs, he's 15-1. All right, let me think. All right, but no, not on a Tuesday at 9-1.
Totally agree. Yeah, Gibbs is out of the question for me. 15-1 probably is more accurate. I mean, if you look at this race last year, he was only 21st. It was this year, this spring, where he happened to have the good qualifying position. And like you said, if you were in those top 2 rows, you were able to lead laps, and he got out there for 34 laps. And like you said, at the end of the race, it was Buescher and Reddick that were battling, and Keselowski sailed through. So if you put those 2 guys back in the mix, you've got Gibbs finishing maybe just inside the top 5.
Yeah, good point. And all right. And he's driving a Toyota.
He's driving a Toyota.
Now, we'll be okay when Denny Hamlin is driving a Toyota, but when Toyota's not doing all that, they're doing okay, but they're still 0 for 5. And I mean, the only thing is Reddick, kicked ass and probably should have won, but he didn't. So okay, it's got to be Bell, right? Well, let's see who the next 3 would be. I'm going to say Bell. I'll put Truex in there. And who do you want to put, Busher or Elliott?
I'm going to say
Chastain's actually done pretty well there lately too, but I don't think they put him up this high.
Busher, Elliott, and probably Bell.
Busher, Elliott, Bell. So no Truex.
No Truex for me.
Okay. All right. I'll put Truex in there then. Bell, Truex, and I'll do Busher. All right. Let's see. Truex, 11-1.
Still not worth it.
No. Bell.
There we go.
So Elliott or Busher. This is
I would take Busher over both of those guys.
I hope Busher's not here. I want Busher further back now.
True. Yeah. A Kyle. Wow.
Now you know what this is about. This is see, Kyle was actually the race co-favorite on Saturday night. That's only for one reason. Okay? That's it. And it's the same thing here, why he's even getting this much respect. Everybody knows what's going on. There's one more chance for him to get in. That's it. Because if you look at Kyle, and look, I'm going to take him just because of the same reason. And the odds at 14-1 are okay enough. But, I mean, what should he be? Probably more like 18-20. Based on the season he's having. He was 27th in this race this year. He's got 1 win at Darlington out of 25. 1. 6 top 5s. He's led about 900 laps. So he's definitely being overvalued here. And then you got Truex at 11. And look, he does have 2 wins. As I said, his result earlier this year would have been better if he didn't get screwed up by Byron. But his next gen average is 25.8. Because he's had 2 wrecks and a DVP, but he's led 221 laps with the next gen. And so, yeah, it's just at 11-1. I think he should be like 14-1. Because you're basically giving the same odds as Christopher Bell. And Bell is just killing him this year overall. He's just not even a contest who's a better driver this year or a better team, Bell over Truex, even though Bell does not have a great history like we talked about, but it has been better recently, which is all that counts, really.
Yeah, these 3. If we're just limiting it to these 3, certainly Kyle Busch is at the top, without question. Then Bell second, and then Truex after for all the reasons that you stated. Plus the fact that Truex here specifically hasn't finished inside the top 5 since this race back in 2021. So he's not been, take this season out of it, just at this track over the past several years, he's not been able to convert it into a finish. I do think Busch probably can be a top 10 contender. I'm not sure that he's got the edge at a place like this with the equipment that they've got to overcome somebody like a Denny Hamlin, somebody like even a Chris Buescher, quite honestly, and a Tyler Reddick. I think they've just got better cars that are better suited for setups that are better suited for this track. Kyle Busch is pretty decent here, and that's why I'm saying I think he's a top 10. And if things fall his way, anything can happen. But I would want a little bit better just based on the fact that, like you said, the only reason that he's 14-1 right now over somebody like a Buescher is the fact that he's got one more chance to be able to make his way into the playoffs. Okay,
we still have Blaney, we still have Elliott, and we still have Buescher. Buescher's got to be next, right?
Take all 3 of those guys over these last 3.
And then also Logano and Logano and Wallace and Chastain. Maybe that's the next 3. So
that's got to be.
Okay, let's see. There's Blaney. 16. There's Joey.
Logano even.
Tied. There's Buescher. 16. So Ford at 6. Not bad. But
Yep.
Buescher's in a good spot there. I like Buescher clearly at 16-1, and he was 10th and 3rd last year, and led 21 laps from the 3rd position this year. When, as we said, he was that close to winning, so not bad. And you're getting 16-1. All right, so
Yep.
who would you take out of this group? Buescher, right? Clearly.
Buescher, without question. And keep in mind, even though you got to throw last week out because, like you said, everybody got crashed, but he was having a good day. This would be the week to bank on Joey Logano based on his trends this season to have a down race.
Ah, there you go. All right. Elliott's name hasn't been called, has it?
Does not.
So no Elliott. Really? No Elliott? Okay. Wow. No Elliott. Here we go. Elliott. 18.
Wow.
So, yeah, Elliott has never won here and has never led a lap with the next gen. Even though his last 3 results are 12th, 8th, and 3rd. It's not that bad for 18-1, but yeah, he's not hot right now. So, next, what do you think, Bubba? Chastain?
I'm going to say Wallace because of the championship bubble.
Yeah. Last 4 for Bubba at Darlington. 7th, 5th, and 9th. So he has been really good here without winning. Ross Chastain. Another one that needs a win. And Bubba. So Chastain, also not bad lately. This year, wrecked, but led 93 laps from the 5th position. So again, you bottom line it. I mean, last year. This was in last year's race. Well, this was actually in last year's spring race.
Yep.
But last year's race, he was 5th. And this year, he was 11th. So that's not bad. Basically, led 93 laps in one race, finished 5th in another, finished 11th this year. He needs the win. And you're getting 22-1. And Wallace, we went over his. So I feel good about taking both Chastain and Wallace with some long shot, a couple of bucks there for those guys.
Yep, I completely agree, and I'd be comfortable taking them on Tuesday as well, not waiting to find out what happens. Those of you interested or thinking about Chase Elliott, he has been pretty decent here, and he's been pretty decent when he's had really crappy qualifying. So despite the fact that he finished 3rd, 8th, and 12th the last 3 races, he started 21st, 13th, and 31st.
Wow.
But he is able to move through the field. That's not common. So he knows how to get the setup right for this track and be able to work his way through traffic. If he qualifies well, his odds are going to drop. But if he qualifies well, he's probably going to be in store for a really good finish.
All right. And now we'll go through the rest. Wow, Eric Jones. We know he's got a good record here, but that's crazy. You're not getting any break there on Eric Jones. Of course, we know he needs the win just like everybody else, but that's a big difference. I mean, he's normally 100-1 every week, and he's getting 35-1. He's won this race twice. We get that. His average finish is just 12.4, which is excellent over 13. It's probably his best track. Again, get that. But he was 19th earlier this year. He hasn't done anything to improve this year. I'm just not getting value there. But it's a big number. So if you want to take him, sort of like what we said about Dylan the other day, it's still a number where if you want to put a buck or two on him because he's your favorite long shot, then by all means do that, because the fact is there's just, once you get to this groupings and the rest of the drivers we're going to go through, there really aren't, because like what you said before, it's like these guys are long shots because they don't have a history here, and they're not just going to turn it around in one race. So in that respect, if you are looking for a long shot, maybe Eric Jones is the longest shot you go. I don't know.
Yeah, I would like Eric Jones probably more like 75-ish area. If you're going to go long shot, though, really, then you just brought him up on the screen. Noah Gragson hasn't done much in Cup. His average finish through 2 races at this track is 20th. But if you look at his Xfinity Series stats, 1st, 2nd, 1st, 4th, 7th, 5th, and 8th. Noah Gragson knows this track. Noah Gragson's got a lot to race for. I wouldn't put him out of the question. He'd probably be my top long shot.
I like it. Sold me. All right. And then you've got Berry, who did finish third this year. Probably would have been sixth around there, but still, he had a good race this year considering he started 33rd. There you got Briscoe, who was fifth this year, best race. So there's a couple of drivers that have had good finishes this year. Bowman, looking at his way, I don't see anything with Bowman except just one top five and an 8th place finish this year. So again, same thing. Bowman, Barry, Briscoe had good races this year, but Bowman has only led one lap in his last 8 races at Darlington. Van Gisbergen's here. Then you got all the rest of the long shots. Any of these other long shots that you would even...
Nope.
Yeah, me either. I'm not seeing anything.
Not at Darlington.
No. Just so you know, let's see, where's Austin Dillon? He's at 150. He does have a runner-up in 2020. He's got 5 top 10s out of 16, but he has never led a lap, ever, at Darlington. So, okay, there you go. So let's go to our picks. What you gonna do, CJ?
I am gonna go... Let's see. So my top choice would be Reddick. I'd like him a little bit better, but he's just been so good recently. Kind of hard to pass that up. I think he's overcome some of his struggles from earlier in the year. My mid-pack pick is going to be Buescher, and then my long shot is going to be Gragson.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on Reddick. Keselowski winning the same race twice in a season. I'm not going to go for that. So I will go. You like Buescher too. I tell you what I'll do. I'll take Wallace and Chastain. So I'll do Reddick, Wallace, Chastain. You'll do Reddick, Buescher, and Gragson.
All excellent choices.
What's that?
All excellent choices.
Oh, of course, yes. That's because we're excellent analysts. Okay, so that'll wrap it up for our NASCAR coverage. Now, it's time to turn our attention to F1. And as I make the switch over to F1, does Lando Norris have any shot at all to catch Max Verstappen?
If you harken back to Dumb and Dumber, you're telling me there's a chance. There is a chance. It's very small, but mathematically there is a chance. Basically, what needs to happen is Norris needs to try to win his way out for the rest of the season. There's still a lot of races left. I want to say 9, something like that. That's going to be really hard to do on the variety of tracks that are coming up. I think McLaren now firmly has the car to beat. It's no longer Red Bull. And I think the tire troubles that have plagued Red Bull are not going to be present at every single race. So I think if Lando were to win every single race, Max Verstappen finishes, call it second behind him. I think they end up close to tied, if not tied, and it comes down to a tiebreaker at that point. So, and the likelihood of Lando winning his way out is not going to be very good, which is why you see the odds here at plus 250, because Verstappen and Red Bull, just by virtue of the fact that they've still got a good car, and wild things happen in motor racing. We still got 9 races left to go.
That's a stretch, though, doesn't it sound like? I mean, that's even. I don't like minus 370, but I mean, we were betting it. Well, I wasn't, but there were people betting minus 370 to Max to win a race just recently. Why wouldn't, if I had the money, put good money on Max Verstappen to win the championship? Matter of fact, I might even just hope that Lando wins next week and the week after, so that odds comes down, and then I jump on Max Verstappen even more.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, because there are probably two tracks where I think Red Bull are truly going to struggle. They're going to, be in the mix with McLaren and Mercedes the majority of the races here on out. But there are two tracks in particular, one of them being Singapore. We talked about that last season. That's one that Max Verstappen and Red Bull just have not ever gotten right. But there's going to be a race. There's going to be several races out of these next 9 or so where he's easily on the podium, if not the winner. That happens once, and basically your negative 370 there pays out for you. So you could even take that early cash out if you
That's
wanted
true.
to. But
Yeah.
if you, I like your strategy. Hope Lando Norris wins this week and next week, and maybe that comes back to negative 150 still mathematically. Verstappen's, through all statistical probability, is still going to win the championship because they've just been so out ahead, because they've had such a dominant season. And I think this week at Monza, while I would put Lando Norris as the favorite for the race win, because I think they have the strongest car right now, and Red Bull has to get on top of their tire problems, because despite that, I still see Verstappen as the championship favorite, just from a mathematical and statistical standpoint, because there are going to be several races out of 9, even taking out the 2 that we know they're going to be bad at, where he has in all likelihood the chance to win and beat Lando Norris. And McLaren has the one race, Dutch Grand Prix. They've had several races this year, but remember, leading up to the break, the summer break, they had made a lot of mistakes. They made missed strategy calls. They messed up with the tire options. They messed up putting the cars out on the wrong tires in qualifying. Those things happen. They're not gone. They had a good week, and hopefully they solved some of those problems for Norris to be able to consistently, get better and consistently not have his team take him out of contention in certain weeks when he can win. But Verstappen's right there as well. So it's still a close battle. It's still Verstappen's to win by a long shot, no matter what happens this week, despite the fact that I would say Lando Norris probably should be your favorite this week, with the Max Verstappen being second.
Okay, so then with this race in Italy, as we can see the odds here being, wow. Verstappen is the second choice, and you're getting double your money. Is this a track? So which are the tracks upcoming for Max where you'd say, based on the fact that he's not hot anymore, which are the upcoming tracks where you'd go, yeah, this is not the one I'm taking. I'd just much rather wait for this race.
I would skip Azerbaijan, and I would skip Singapore. Definitely skip Singapore. He has never been good. Red Bull has never figured out that track for whatever reason. The Red Bull chassis just doesn't work there. It's a unique circuit. They've not figured it out. So I would skip him in Singapore. Italy this week is going to be a little bit interesting, and I think it's right that Lando Norris and Max Verstappen are very close. So Monza is a very old track. It's a very fast track, and it's punctuated with slow corners. So it's got 3 chicanes, very tight, slow corners. It's got 2 medium turns and then 2 high-speed turns. And the most important high-speed turn is coming onto the main straight. It's the fastest track in Formula One. They reach the highest speeds from a time of the length of the race. Time-wise, it's the shortest because they are going so fast. It wraps up really quickly. And it's all about horsepower, as little drag as you can get on those cars. So your grip and your tires don't really come into effect as long as you're able to make passes on the straightaways. So I think Max Verstappen and Red Bull probably stand a pretty good chance of being pretty close to Lando Norris this weekend. I would still put Lando Norris at the front, though, just because of that tire issue, because if Max can't get off of those last fast turns onto the front straightaway, then the McLaren's going to eat him up, because again, it's all about being able to maintain that high speed. And if you've got the tires to be able to stick through that last turn 11 onto the main straight, then you're going to be the one that's got the advantage. And I think that's going to go to Norris, but it should be close this weekend. But if you're going to, for those of you wondering where Verstappen and Red Bull are going to be at their weakest, I would say it's the 2 weeks after this one.
Okay, here's the problem I have, though, and that is not about not taking Verstappen, so I'll ask you this question, and that is, the fact that Lando Norris is at even money and he's won 2 races.
Yeah.
So that is completely, strategy wise for, a handicapper. Forget that. Sorry, not doing it. So, but if I still have problems with Max, then maybe that opens the door for someone else. So who would that open the door for if we get rid of those top 2 guys?
I'd say Oscar Piastri by a long shot, and I think these odds are right. So Piastri's in a McLaren. He's won 1 race, so you're getting the benefit there. He's not even money, so you're getting a little bit better odds here. He's in the same car as Norris, so he's going to have the same type of straight line speed. He's going to have the same kind of advantage. He's got roughly the same organization calling the shots for him. Keep in mind, Monza was repaved. So this is a new surface for everyone. The temperature is going to be high. That's going to wear on tires. And we know that Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, and Mercedes have struggled in hot temperatures. So that throws them out, which leaves you with Oscar Piastri, right? So if you don't want even money, you're not willing to take even money on somebody who's won twice, takes 6-1 or 7-1 on Oscar Piastri, who's got 1 race win and is in the same car.
Yeah.
Or you go Verstappen.
All right, there you go. So I like it. Before we go, there was actually we had from Prime. This is
good. I know.
Oh,
the Max Verstappen Kyle Larson beef.
Yeah. Yes, there were a couple of things going on there, and so what do you make of it? First of all, was it is it overblown? What does it even mean?
I don't know. That's hard to answer because you'd have to get inside Max's head to know whether it was overblown. So I totally get Kyle Larson's point. He races on dirt, he races road courses, he races on ovals, big ovals, short ovals. He raced IndyCar, the Indy 500. He did exceptionally well in that as well. So he's uber confident, and he's a guy that can go out in almost any kind of equipment and make sure, put himself in a good position to contest for the win, regardless of whether it's Formula One or IndyCar or NASCAR or Sprint Car or whatever. Whereas we've only ever really seen Verstappen in the feeder series up to Formula One and in Formula One, and that's where he's made his name. He has not branched out into all these other diverse disciplines. So then that kicks off the argument as to what makes it the best driver. Is it the series? Formula One is widely considered the ultimate form of motorsport and the top of the pinnacle. So because Max Verstappen dominates there, does that make him the best driver? Or do you go back to, which I would say is more old school thinking in terms of the diversity? So Kyle Larson is kind of a guy that harkens back to like an AJ Foyt and a Mario Andretti, those types of guys that would go race NASCAR, win the Daytona 500, then go race Le Mans, and then go and win Indianapolis 500 too. So they do a lot of different disciplines. So that's Larson's standpoint. Hey, I do a lot of different disciplines. I win at all of them, so therefore I know I could also hop into a Formula One car and do well too. Whereas Verstappen, he's like, hey, I'm here against the best in the world, and every single series is a little bit different. And yeah, you've got the skill sets that can jump into different series, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best driver. I think I fall more on Larson's camp. I think the diversity, like a Fernando Alonso, who's done Le Mans, he's done IndyCar, he's done Formula One, obviously. I think that, to me, is what makes a better, or a, if I'm ranking the all-time drivers, you've got to have some diversity in there as well. Whereas Verstappen so far, really his success has come just in one discipline.
Okay. By the way, who is that genius engineer that's leaving?
Adrian Newey.
Okay, does this have anything to do with why Verstappen and the team is kind of struggling a little bit? Nothing, zero.
Not this soon. Newy's loss is going to be felt in the next generations of cars.
Okay.
Keep in mind, these rules have been relatively static for a couple of years, and Red Bull has dominated for a couple of years. So I think the ceiling of the maximum that they can get out of their current design has been reached. So I think Newey feels like, okay, we've gotten the max out of this platform. I'm going to go and I'm going to take the opportunity to do something completely new. Whereas McLaren, Mercedes, etc., they're just now hitting the pinnacle of what they designed a couple of years ago, the base, the core of that design. And so Newey leaving absolutely hurts, and maybe there's some quick impacts that are felt, but I think the true impact of Newey leaving is going to be on the next generation car, and maybe even more so the following generation car for Red Bull.
Okay. And then on Prime Tire, they did have a little bit of a debate back and forth regarding this. They had writers here that basically they threw in their own opinion on what they thought about that, the whole Verstappen versus Larson deal. So you get everybody's opinions here. You can check it out. So do you think Larson's claim is correct? Is it possible he is the better driver? Smith says no. I think it massively underestimates just how good Max Verstappen is. What do you think, sir? Mr. F1 NASCAR expert? Who's better? If you can determine who's better.
I don't think you can, because you haven't seen them in the same equipment yet. I think both have to do a lot of diverse racing, and so far, I'd probably put Larson a little bit ahead, because Larson's got the demonstrated experience in different disciplines, whereas Max has, he's got karting and he's come up through the ranks, but it's all been primarily the F1 feeder series. So when Max decides to go and race Le Mans, when Max decides to go do sports cars or perhaps rally or something else, and he achieves success there, wins races, etc., then I think it's probably a better conversation to have at that point. Right now, Max Verstappen has clearly had the best car for several years. He's up against some of the best drivers in the world. That is absolutely not diminishing the fact that Max is one of the best in the world, but he is the best in the world at Formula One. We haven't seen Kyle Larson in Formula One for several years, so I don't know what Larson would be able to do in that respect either. But because of the demonstrated diversity, Larson just gets the edge for me.
See, the thing is that you would think, how many times has Max Verstappen won a championship?
3.
3 so far in a row?
I believe so. Has it been more than that? It's been 3. 3 in a row, on his way to 4. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal I have is, shouldn't we wait for Kyle Larson to win 3 or 4 in a row NASCAR championships before we start competing who's the best driver in the world? I mean, Larson's got 1 championship. We just talked about it, I don't know how many times in this show, how inconsistent he's been this season. I mean, there have been, I don't know how many drivers have had much better seasons than Kyle Larson's having this year, just dating back the last 5 or 6 years. The dominating years that some of these drivers have had. He's one of them, but it's just, I think we're getting a little bit carried away. Now, I'm not saying that, because I totally agree with what you're saying regarding Kyle Larson can be very good in a variety of different series. That's fine. I'm good with that. But I just think it's important, though, for me, that I just think that he needs to be that dominant in NASCAR before we start comparing him to someone who's that dominant in F1. That's just me.
Well, I think also you've got to look at the parity of the series as well. Like, who has dominated NASCAR since the knockout round series has begun, and really nobody. So to win a championship in the format that NASCAR is, with the level of competition NASCAR has, I think it's probably harder. I think there's
absolutely
a bigger gap
yes
between cars in Formula One than there is in NASCAR, and that therefore makes it harder to win a race and dominate. So again, I don't think there's a comparison that you can truly make until we start seeing them do similar things.
Yes.
As of yet, they've not done similar things.
Yeah.
Larson to me gets the edge because I kind of agree. I can't see Max Verstappen coming over and winning the Chili Bowl Nationals. I think was a quote that I saw in there at some point. I don't think he can do that.
Yeah,
I just don't think he can. Nor do I think that Verstappen can come in and win the Cup championship either.
Yeah.
And if he can, he's certainly not going to dominate it for 3 years in a row.
No.
So who is right?
Sure.
It's a debate. It's an interesting conversation. For me personally, just based on the fact that I'm more old school, I like the diversity. So therefore, Larson gets the edge. But I still think to be successful in Formula One is being at the best at the pinnacle of the motorsport. So that carries a certain prestige along with it.
By the way, who is another current driver you feel could be in the conversation for the best all-around racer on the planet? Smith has Alonso.
Yep. Is in his twilight years now, but yeah, Alonso at his best was probably the closest, I would say, in terms of equal of diversity of what Larson can do, because Alonso left Formula One, came back and had success. Alonso's gone on, he's won the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He's a Formula One champion. He's come to IndyCar and he probably could have won the Indy 500 as well. So that, to me, speaks volumes about his capacity as a race car driver, and I think that's a similar conversation that you can have a more apt comparison to somebody like a Kyle Larson, because again, they've done some similar things there, whereas Verstappen, he's just not demonstrated it yet.
Yeah, Glock.
And of course, Ginsbergen has to be in that conversation too. I mean, the supercars are an extremely tough competition. The competition is extremely tight there. It's superb driving skills on really difficult cars and tracks. So Van Ginsbergen, absolutely, he's a great race car driver as well, and is showing his diversity right now.
At all time, it has to be. Miss Smith says it has to be Mario.
Yeah, I'd say Mario or AJ Foyt, to be honest with you. I think both have done some pretty great things across various disciplines, including IndyCar, Formula One, and NASCAR, as well as sprint cars. All of them, or both of them, I should say. So I think those two have to be in the conversation by themselves.
Awesome, excellent. We're done. CJ, appreciate it. Don't forget to check out when we post this show. If you're watching it, you're watching it. It's been posted, so check out the link in the description for CJ's F1 report at rotowire.com. And if you NASCAR fans are still watching, same thing for when I do the starting lineup report on Saturday. And it's going to be my first go around. I got to check the time for when the I got to check it out. You don't need to know, but the fact is, I got a post-game show for college football around 4 o'clock. I got college football games going on all over the place, so I'll fit it in. I promise you I would, and I will. So it should be, as long as it's not around 4 o'clock, then we should be good to go. I'll be busy up until probably between 4 and 5, but depending on when qualifying takes place, if it's not around that time, it should be up within about a half hour after qualifying ends on Saturday. So that's for NASCAR. This is also for F1. CJ, appreciate your time as always.
Thank you for having me.
And next week, no F1. Next week, the NASCAR playoffs begin, if you can believe it, with Atlanta. So we'll be previewing the playoffs. It's good that we have no F1 because we'll have the extra time to preview the playoffs, give our predictions, futures, all that kind of stuff. So that's on next week's show. And who knows, since we've been doing this at 4 o'clock each week, if we're still going to feel pretty confident we can do this at 4 o'clock next week, maybe we'll go live. So get your input. If you want us to go live, let us know in the comment section. And we'll see you guys next week.